Welcome back to what is probably the last in-game episode of Echoes of the Eye. We're going to have a whiteboard session after this where I talk about what I learned from Echoes of the Eye. That's going to be mostly spoiler-free. This is not. We're going to talk about the final tower, the mansion. Now, I've been focusing on how to construct and arrange exploration-based gameplay for this kind of adventure game. That's what this game really taught me. That's what I'd like to take away from it most. The first tower is really good exploration-based gameplay. The second tower doesn't have any exploration-based gameplay. It's all classic puzzle game stuff. The third tower starts with some really good exploration-based gameplay and then turns into puzzle game shenanigans. So it's a fun thing to study because it does it well and poorly, depending on exactly what part of the tower we're talking about. So, let's talk about it. One of the keys to exploration-based gameplay is that you explore in order to play the game, which means that there are some specific exploration-based structuring that you have to have in your levels. And the first half of this does that extremely well. The two kinds of structure that I really want to focus on, we'll talk about this in more detail in the whiteboard episode, but essentially we can think of every area we go into as a cluster of leaf nodes, meaning that, for example, all of these buildings here are places that we want to explore. This is a cluster of places to explore. But when we explore them, we don't then just immediately move on to the next thing. We back up and we explore a different leaf node. So, for example, even if you go here and you realize you can go into the basement, you're unlikely to immediately jump into the basement here because you haven't finished exploring all of the leaf nodes in the village. So, you go and you explore all of the buildings before you move on. That's pretty critical. When we think about how to arrange our content, we arrange our content into clusters of leaves rather than chains. And that's exactly what this first portion does. It also uses a technique I'm going to call switchbacks. I'm sure that other people probably have other names for them, which we'll talk about as well. Once again, just to hammer this home, this is an amazing first visual. You might have forgotten, but this is like a huge mansion backed by these majestic cliffs with a huge, strange planet floating above. And you want to get there, but you can't because there's no bridge. We already covered this, but I just wanted to hammer home just how powerful this is as an exploration. You're like, I've really got to figure out how to get there. I want to go explore there, but I can't get there. I have to figure out how to get there. And so we come over here, and this, it needs to be stressed, this is not a puzzle. You're not supposed to have to agonize over how to solve this. I'm calling these switchbacks because the whole purpose is to go someplace and take an action which changes the nature of how you see everywhere you've been so far. And so this brought us back to where we were before. It's a switchback. Here we've got a split, and this is different from the split in the second tower. In the second tower there's a circuit, whereas in the third tower, it is a cluster of leaves. Now, it's still a cluster of leaves in the second tower, but the circuit makes things messy. In this case, when you come over here and you explore this area, unless you already know about invisible bridges, you're going to think that this area is here to talk about music. Like, oh, look, they enjoy their music, and they enjoy sitting and looking out into the night sky, and this is why this area exists. This leaf has now been explored. And maybe we agonize it over a little bit and wonder if we're missing something, which we are, because the reward here is a little bit faint. It's just barely enough to qualify as an exploration reward, and that's because the real reward is this invisible bridge, which we're going to not bother with. Now, after you've explored that leaf node, the whole point is that you go back in and you explore another direction for another leaf node. In this case, we'll just go down here. And we see that there is something here. It's not an invisible bridge. It is instead an activatable bridge. So they're setting up another switchback. And as we come over here, we're going to see across the way there is a hand we can teleport to. Boop. Now, obviously, spatial complexity is a factor here. It might be a little bit confusing to you as to where you are, but it's simpler than it appears. It's disorienting, but it's not actually complex, and that's important because we don't want to actually have this situation confuse the player in any sort of significant way. We just want them to feel like they're a little bit lost, even though they're not. Now, someone told me that they immediately realized there would be guard dodging when they saw this room, and I don't disagree. It didn't occur to me, but this is definitely a room that is structured for guard dodging. That means that the devs actually decided you would be able to get in through the front door and actually power your way through the stealth section. I can't imagine that. I was absolutely gutted by the stealth section. I never even got past the first guard. That's probably just a difference in our native understanding. And here you can see we've finished the switchback, and we're switching back and accessing new leaves. That's probably just our difference in understanding of video game guards and stealth sections. It's never been my favorite kind of play, so I just didn't interpret that very well. Anyway, here we've got another leaf. Now, I say that you'll understand that this door is a secret door, even if you haven't seen the slides showing you that, because it's got so much in common with the other secret doors you've been through, and it's huge and blue. But unfortunately, you can't activate that secret door without knowing secret bridges exists, and secret bridges are explained to you in the same slideshow. So it's one of those situations where even if you wanted to try and discover this without the slideshow, well, you would have a tough time, because you'd have to somehow intuit that invisible bridges exist. Or you'd have to smash your face into every single one of the paintings in order to see which one was actually not there and was transparent. So here we can go down into the dock area. Now, from a navigation perspective, this is not a leaf, because from a navigation perspective, you can take the boat anywhere you'd like. But from an exploration perspective, it is a leaf, because we now understand this zone. This area exists to allow us to take the boat. We know what it's for. We're not likely to just jump into the boat and sail off. Even if we do, we're going to remember that there's a whole bunch of leaves we haven't explored yet. So this basic setup is really pretty good for establishing this sort of area as explored. We have now explored this area. We've seen several places of interest that we don't quite understand, several places that we think we understand, and we probably realize that there's something directly underfoot that we can't get to. Even if we didn't realize that that door that we had seen, the blue door, was a door, we can look here and see the back of it. So with a little bit of lateral thinking or a little bit of exploration, you're almost certainly going to understand that there is something suspicious about that door. But if you don't know that invisible bridges exist, you're going to have to like just pound your head into every single painting until you happen to find one that is invisible, and that is rough. That's like, I don't know if I'd want to do that. So let's go and examine this stealth section with the magic of VR. We're just going to drop this here. Now, obviously, you are not supposed to do this. Solving this puzzle actually teaches you how to do this. So you are supposed to solve this puzzle just by brute forcing it and going through the guards. Now, the easiest way to do that is to go in through the back, which we're going to discuss. I actually can't solve this puzzle because I'm not carrying the torch, so I can't teleport. But we can clearly see the structure of the puzzle pretty well through this area. We're not going to have to go through that guard building, the guard room, because we can't get there from here. I can't activate any stuff without my my beautiful lantern, and it's over there somewhere. But we can clearly see the guards glowing in the darkness, and that makes it really easy to understand their patterns and how they work. And you can quickly see that there was really only one guard in this location, and that one guard was enough to completely destroy me. I couldn't get past that one guard, and he's not even in the way. He just freaked me out so badly that I got confused. And so whenever I'd move into somewhere else, I would assume that he was teleporting around or some nonsense. It was really a frantic puzzle. I didn't enjoy it at all, which is why I didn't beat it. I then just went on to beat the game instead. You can see that there is a second, very hidden bridge over here. It's not even marked by any of the indicators that are supposed to mark hidden bridges, and that's because this is supposed to be something you discover after the fact. It actually leads you to the exact same place you'd go if you took the boat here, so it's not really cheating, and it's certainly how I beat this section. And you can see there is a bridge leading out across into the library. When you can actually see these bridges, understanding where you need to go becomes a cinch. And since you can see the guards, understanding what you need to dodge becomes a cinch. Now obviously I can't activate the library without my torch. But what I can do is take a peek. There is our guard. You can see how he is just kind of floating back there. He's not even patrolling. That's the only guard you have to deal with when you're actually trying to beat this area. So let's go beat it. Now, I'm not going to make a video about the ending of the game. The ending of the game is an interesting case, but it has nothing to do with what I'm trying to explore, which is exploration-based gameplay. The ending has some really good foundations, and it has the flaw of the fact that it has to be something that incorporates back into the main game. So just when the ending is getting really sharp and really good and really amazing, it just kind of stops, and in a really confusing way. And I know that for some people that was an issue. And the reason for that is because you're supposed to go back and finish the game, the main game. So if you're wondering why the ending was like that, that's why. We won't be talking about it because it has nothing to do with exploration. So here we are, just going to go around. There we go. See ya, sucker. So let's go down into the final library. This is the most interesting library, and I'm not sure I mean that in a good way. I don't like the second and third libraries in terms of what they teach you, because their primary purpose is to teach you how you should have beaten that puzzle. And it's like, why would you tell me how I should have beaten this puzzle after I beat the puzzle the hard way? Just making fun of me? What a jerk. So, nearly all of the invisible bridges in the game are in this level, and that includes the invisible bridges right here. But they don't go anywhere, because even if you go over here, you can't read anything. So it is one of those situations where it's not really a very interesting use of invisible bridges, and it's made a lot worse by the fact that you can't really use your knowledge of invisible bridges anywhere else. And this is something that I have a problem with the bells as well. The second and third tower both teach you an important mechanic for solving the puzzles in the game. So does the first. The first place has the solution to a puzzle, but the second and third places show you how to use the mechanic you're going to be using. So in the second tower, it is the bells. You're supposed to figure out how to use the bells. And once you figure out how to use the bells, or get around the bells, it teaches you a better way to get around the bells. And in the third tower, it teaches you about these invisible bridges, and it teaches you a better way to get around the invisible bridges. But in both cases, it just leads straight to the end game. There's no other locations in the game with invisible bridges or bells. It's just the end game. And it's the same with the first tower. When you beat the first tower, you don't have to use the trick they show you. In fact, you can't. But then the trick they show you, again, it can't be used for any other thing in the game other than solving that one puzzle in the end game. And that's just a little bit too tight for me. I would really enjoy it if we had a little bit more. Well, I mean, this is already a pretty big DLC, but it could have been a much larger game, and I would have enjoyed it a lot more because I would have gotten a chance to really see what all of those things could help me explore. We would have gotten a chance to play around in a much more extended manner, and then I could have shaken off my confusion about how the towers work and how the bell towers work and all that stuff, because I would have had a chance to use those mechanics in other places and polish my understanding of it. Here's the creation of the VR. They get together, they make some VR stuff. This is exactly how it works in Unity. Yep, just put it together. Well, one thing I can say is it'll definitely put you to sleep. So that's just backstory stuff. The other one is, of course, the one that teaches you the mechanic you need to know. Another glitch. I love the music stings when they teach you those things. I imagine that discovering these libraries would have been absolutely chilling. Like, I can do that? If you hadn't discovered the mechanics beforehand. In this case, that was my feeling, because I didn't realize I could do that mechanic. I had no idea what was up with that mechanic, and learning it here was like, oh! Because I had brute forced the solution. So, to me, I'd completely misunderstood that mechanic throughout the whole game until I finally, reached the end. Beat the game and came back. Hear that? I don't actually know what's up with that. I think it's just an effect to be cool, but all of the ripped up and damaged puzzle elements, passwords, are glitched, and I think that's really interesting. I wonder what it is. It would be cool if it was a mechanic that you could use somewhere else, but I think it's just a visual trick. A little fun. Either way, I hope you enjoyed this little bit of walkthrough here. And in the next episode, we are going to discuss the exact kind of structures that we can use to try and create a more organic kind of exploration game, rather than a puzzle-centric exploration game. That's what I've been making this series to do, and so let's get to it. See you soon.